Okay, so let's say um, you're in that situation we all dread, right? Parents, maybe grandparents, started to think about downsizing,
Yeah.
and what's the first image that pops into your head? Because I don't know about you, but for me, it's not exactly like, a party.
Right, right. It's usually that kind of stereotypical retirement home, and
Can
it's
you
not
talk?
exactly the most inspiring picture.
No, not at all. But
Yeah.
but that's why this deep dive was so interesting, at least to me, because we're so used to this idea of senior housing being kind of, well, frankly, depressing.
Yeah, yeah.
But the source we're looking at today is saying there's a whole different way to approach this part of life.
Yeah, and one of the things that really jumped out, at least for me, was how traditional senior housing kind of misses the point.
Oh, how so?
Well, they focus on the space, right? Make it
Yeah.
smaller, but they don't really deal with all the other life changes happening,
Oh, interesting.
the emotional side of things. And our source actually uses this phrase. They say it's like some of these places, the residents end up
Oh, God.
crowded together like livestock.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a strong image, but
It is.
it makes you think, doesn't it? Like, is this really how we want to treat a generation that's done so much? It's like we're just warehousing people.
It's like we want to just put them away and
Yeah,
forget about them instead of creating a place where they can actually, live and thrive.
exactly. Thrive. And that's a big part of what this source is pushing back on, that whole mindset of like out of sight, out of mind. We need to rethink what senior living even means.
Okay, so how do we do that? What are they suggesting?
Well, one of the big takeaways is that smaller communities, more intimate settings can actually be so much better.
Really?
Yeah,
So, like, instead of those huge retirement towers, you're thinking more like almost like a neighborhood.
exactly, exactly. And there's research to back this up. Smaller communities, more interaction, people actually do better mentally, emotionally.
Well, yeah, because it's that sense of belonging,
Mm.
right? It's harder to find that in these huge impersonal places.
Exactly. And it's so easy to just focus on the practical stuff when we talk about downsizing, like how many bedrooms, but we forget that human element.
Oh, for sure. We're all about the square footage, and then we forget, like, people need connection too.
Absolutely. And that's where this idea of an integrated approach comes in. The source talks about it a lot.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What's an integrated approach when we're talking about, senior living?
So it's not just about the building, right? It's thinking about all those services, those supports that let people stay independent for as long as possible.
Give me an example.
Like healthcare that's right there, transportation if they need it, even meal delivery, but all of it, like woven together within the community.
Oh, I see. So instead of someone having to go to 10 different places, it's
Right.
all right there.
Yeah, this makes a lot of sense.
It's about making life easier, less stressful. And that's good for everyone, right?
Or absolutely. Especially if you're the adult child of someone who's getting older and you're worried about them. This would give you so much peace of mind knowing that they're not having to navigate a bunch of different things.
Exactly. But here's the thing. I know what you're going to ask. What's that?
Because on the surface, all of this sounds great, but it sounds expensive, right?
It does, yeah. Like,
Yeah.
how do you make that work financially?
And that's what's so interesting, actually, because the source actually argues that it might not be.
Oh, really?
Yeah, this is where it gets kind of cool. These smaller places, with this whole integrated approach, they might actually be cheaper in the long run.
Okay, now my brain is broken. How does that work? Because
Yeah.
that seems like the opposite of what you'd expect.
Right. But think about it. A traditional senior home, yeah, maybe the rent's lower or whatever, but then you've got repairs constantly.
Oh, because those places were built like the cheapest way possible.
Exactly. So you're fixing stuff all the time. It's outdated. But if you invest up front,
In good quality, you mean?
yeah, better materials, energy efficient, all that, suddenly you're saving money down the line.
So it is like that whole you get what you pay for thing.
Exactly. But it's not about luxury here. It's like, does the building actually work for the people in it?
And prevent problems before they happen, right? Like good design could mean fewer falls, that kind of thing.
Exactly. And when you add in potential savings, like maybe someone needs less outside help because the community's so supportive, the financial argument gets really strong, actually.
This is making me totally rethink my assumptions because I always thought, oh, these places are for rich people. But if it's an investment that pays off.
Right. And that ties back to what we were saying before about the ethics of it all.
Totally.
It's not just, oh, keep seniors comfortable. It's how do we make this model work for more people?
This makes me think of that term aging in place, which I feel like is everywhere these days.
Hmm.
But isn't that like the opposite of what we're talking about?
Not really, and here's why. aging in place, it's about letting people stay in their homes, right?
As long as it's safe and all.
Exactly. But to do that, you often need the same stuff. Good support services, accessible design.
So it's not about the building itself, it's the support no matter where someone lives.
Exactly. And that's where it gets really interesting. What if our whole society was more age-friendly?
Oh, expand it beyond just senior living.
Yeah. Streets that are safe for everyone to walk on, transportation that's easy to use no matter how old you are.
It's like we're so busy making separate solutions for seniors that we forget we're all aging. We all deserve a world that works for us at every age.
Exactly. And this source, it's not just about senior housing, it's about how we design our world.
So instead of dreading getting older,
Yeah.
we can think of it as like, okay, how do we make this chapter of life just as good, if not better, than all the ones before?
And that's what I find so hopeful about this whole conversation.
Me too. You know, it's funny. We started with that whole crowded, like, livestock thing, and now I'm picturing, like, a really awesome community center, but for, like, seniors who actually want to be there.
Total turnaround, right?
Totally. And it
Mhm.
just shows how easy it is to get stuck in those old ways of thinking about senior housing.
Oh, for sure. We see what we expect to see instead of what's actually possible.
Exactly. And this source, to me, it's like a breath of fresh air. You know, it's not
Yeah.
just, oh, build nicer buildings. It's about that deeper level of, like, supporting people so they can actually live.
And thrive. That's a word I keep coming back to.
Right. Thriving,
Yeah.
not just, like, existing or being taken care of. And that's what I love about this whole idea of, I don't even want to call it senior housing anymore, but this whole approach.
When do we call it?
I don't know. That's part of the problem. We don't even have a language for it yet. But it's about enabling people, not just caring for them.
Yes. And recognizing, like you said, that our needs, our wants, they don't just disappear when we hit a certain age.
Exactly. So, like, next time someone says senior housing, I'm going to challenge them to picture something totally different.
I love it. Throw out those old images.
Right. Imagine a place where, honestly, you wouldn't mind spending time, even if you weren't,
A resident?
yeah, maybe even a really fun place with, like, I don't know, a great social calendar and a good happy hour. Why not?
Now you're talking.
But seriously, the stuff we've talked about today, it goes way beyond just, like, where people live, right?
Oh, 100%. This is about how we design our world.
Right. Like accessible streets, transportation that makes sense no matter how old you are, places where people can connect, feel like they belong.
Because that's what it's all about in the end, isn't it? Belonging, connection, purpose.
And if we can build that into our communities for everyone, not just a certain age group.
Then we're really getting somewhere.
Couldn't agree more. And on that note, that's about all the time we have for today's deep dive. But as always, we hope this sparks some new ideas for you.
Keep those conversations going.
Exactly. And think about how we can all create a world that's a little more, well, a lot more age-friendly.